That's it. That's the post. That's the whole video. Done. But in all seriousness, the R34 being in No Limit Drag Racing 2.0's next update is extremely exciting in itself, don't get me wrong. However, I do think that the customization features that this update seems to be bringing are even more exciting. In this video, we're going to dive into everything about that picture. We're going to tear it apart, and we're going to hopefully kind of dig up some new features of the update that we haven't seen before. Now, before we dive into any of that, though, I do want to do a little bit of a recap on everything we know about the update up to the point we're at now. Now, y'all have all probably already seen the Civic as well as the Mark III Supra, but a lot of people actually seemed to miss the Mark III Supra video. So if you have missed that, you can either just watch the rest of this one to catch up, or you can just go and watch that one in case you missed it. I mean, either way works for me. But first, let's go ahead and dive butt first. I don't know if I want to dive butt first into the front of a Skyline, but I mean, I suppose if you want to. But in all seriousness, the front end of this car is where a lot of the really exciting updates to the customization seem to be. So it looks like this car is going to get a whole host of extras, especially one that I'm curious about seems to be the ability to delete the headlights, as well as the absolutely gnarly looking screamer pipe that is coming out of the hood. That looks so sick. And not only does it come directly out of the hood, but it's actually ever so slightly curved back. It's got like a really defined shape to it. And a lot of cars that are built in this style have exhaust exits like that come right out of the hood, right off the turbo. So I can definitely see why they put it there. But like, I guess I just didn't expect to see it. And so the fact that it's there made me really excited. And now that I'm looking at it up close, it actually looks like it's two pipes, which makes a lot of sense, honestly, because a lot of cars like this would have one pipe that is your standard exhaust, and then the other one that comes directly off of the wastegate. So essentially a vent to atmosphere wastegate instead of a recirculated one. And now we get to return to kind of the larger picture of the car, the wider picture of the car again, because this car, as you can see, clearly has a custom wide body kit, but I'm kind of back and forth on whether or not that kit will sort of go on as one thing, or if it's going to have mix and matchable parts. Now, if it has mix and matchable parts, that'll actually be really cool because blending different wide body kits together is probably one of the most fun aspects of customization that you can have in any racing game. And honestly, we're kind of getting to like early Need for Speed Underground levels of customization in No Limit now, which is kind of wild to me considering how many racing games we had essentially in recent years to now that didn't really have all that much in terms of customization. And then here's this phone game that's like, oh, hey, you want to build this or this or this? Or also this. So I don't know. It's wild to me that like this level of customization is coming to us from a mobile title and not necessarily some big like AAA racing game. Now, granted, there are a lot of big AAA racing games out there that have customization, of course, but a lot of them are pretty limited in terms of what you can do in the customization. Whereas here, it's kind of like a sky's the limit sort of thing, especially with all of the new drivetrain types that they're adding. And speaking of drivetrain types, or rather driveline varieties, isn't it interesting that so far we've seen a front-wheel drive car in terms of the Honda Civic, we've seen a rear-wheel drive car in terms of the Mark III Supra, and then now we see an R34 Skyline, which I think to a lot of people essentially symbolizes that all-wheel drive aspect. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be super optimistic that we're going to see a bunch of other all-wheel drive cars. Like, I would love to see like Evos and Subarus be a thing in No Limit as well, because I'm sure people would love those, and they would also probably just build the crap out of them, because Evos and Subarus are so well loved, especially in terms of like just tuner culture in general. And even like whether you are into drag racing or rally racing or circuit racing, there's always going to be, to some degree anyway, an Evo and Subaru presence. But another thing that I'm really curious about is whether or not you'll be able to swap engines around in like creative ways. So like, let's say, for example, you wanted to put a V8 into the Skyline, but maybe you also wanted to take the turbo inline six out of the Skyline and drop it into some muscle car, right? Like stuff like that I find really intriguing, because creative engine swaps are one of the coolest aspects of car building in general, at least in my opinion, because, you know, everybody always like, you know, they see like a built car, like a built Camaro or a built Mustang or whatever, and then you walk up to it and you either hear it start or someone pops the hood and you're like, hold on a second, there's a big turbo 2J in that. Like, it's moments like that that I think really add to the creativity aspect of being able to swap engines around. And actually, on that note, let me know in the comments down below what your first, like, creative engine swap would be. Like, if you could take one engine from like anything in No Limit and put it into like anything else, what would it be? Honestly, I think you could go pretty crazy with it. Like, you could go crazy with it to the point to where you could be like, I don't know, take like a fully built big turbo 4-cylinder out of a Civic and put it into like some old muscle car just to make, honestly, just to make people mad for fun. And of course, since we're talking about No Limit, I feel like we should also just make sure to talk about Off-Road Outlaws a little bit too. And because we now know that these R34 GTR-ish like Skyline assets exist, can we get an R34 Skyline monster truck? I feel like that's the most ridiculous thing to ask for, but I'm going to ask for it anyway because, and to be honest, we'll probably not get that, but at the very least, we're putting it out there, and who knows, maybe putting the idea out there into the world might create something ridiculous. I don't know. It's probably the last thing on their minds in terms of like what they plan on adding to Off-Road Outlaws. And I'm sure that there are many more highly requested things that they could add to Off-Road Outlaws. I mean, they've said themselves before that the older trucks are the most popular suggestion amongst the community for Off-Road Outlaws. Like, more people ask for older trucks than anything else, according to the developers. So again, we probably will not see a monster Skyline at any time soon, but at least we can dream about it, if not for anything other than the memes. Now, I did want to go back to the picture of the Skyline just for a little while to talk about something else, though. Now, looking at the wheel and tire setup, I feel like this is potentially rear-wheel drive and not all-wheel drive, because if you notice, we've got the giant bead-locked slicks out there in the back, and then we've got something that looks kind of like a street wheel and tire in the front. Now, I could be wrong. It could still be all-wheel drive. I don't know, but I don't know. The setup makes me lean towards it being rear-wheel drive, and I'm sure that it would be fun either way. And all-wheel drive, again, I know that there's kind of back and forth opinions on whether or not people would want to let that be introduced into No Limit, because it would obviously need its own class, because if you let all-wheel drive cars run with front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive cars, I think you'll probably encounter some balancing issues fairly quickly. But again, you never know what they might do. You never know what kind of directions they might take in order to mitigate issues like that. But again, it's going to be one of those, like, we'll have to wait and see what happens as time goes on. Now, at this point in the video, I want y'all to let me know in the comments down below how this is all kind of shaping up for you, because overall what I'm seeing in the No Limit community is it seems like people are very excited about this update, and it seems that people are less divided on this update than almost any other update that we've seen for the game so far. Because if y'all remember the Dragster update, there were a lot of people that were really excited about it, but there were also a lot of people that were just not about the whole Dragster thing, and they were like, we don't want this, we want more street cars, we don't want Dragsters. And I'm like, I can kind of see how there would be a little bit of contention there, but at the same time, I can tell what the devs were trying to do in terms of just deepening the overall car roster. Whereas with this update, it seems like most people in the community are finding something about it to be excited for, whether that's the new cars or the customization features or potentially the new engine types or all of the different parts that may be able to be added to cars now. Like, it seems like it's got something for just about every community member, regardless of whether or not import cars are your thing. And I think that that's another thing that's really important to point out here, is that even if you're not into imports at all, I think you're still going to be able to find some stuff about this update to really like and to really enjoy and to really kind of get some real time and mileage out of. And I think that that's really at the end of the day what it's all about, right? Is how much game mileage is the community going to get out of each update, right? Like, are they going to use the features for a while, or are they going to use the features for a little while and then not use them again? And obviously you want an update to be something that people are going to use and continue to use for a long time. And I definitely think that this update has the potential to do just that. And with that, if y'all enjoyed this update video, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all next time.